Mr. Gavaskar is right here in studio with us. Good evening, sir. Thanks so much for joining us. Great to have you here in studio with us. Before we talk about the specifics of the match today, that reaction of MS Dhoni is when he jumped for joy immediately after India won. That said a thing or two, didn't it? Because he's usually not very expressive.
Well, I think it just showed how keen he was to win the game. How we knew that they had, won a match which they had seemingly lost. When West Indies were 170 for 2 and then Dwayne Smith got out at that stage, I think that is where the match turned. You've also got to say that when Marlon Samuels played the way that he did, that was really hard to understand. Because here is a man who's got 100 in the previous game just a couple of days back, who's been in very good form, who batted brilliantly in that game, and suddenly finding scoring very difficult. Cricket is a funny game. It can take you to highs and it can take you to the lows. And I think that possibly was an example of what cricket can do to you. But I think it was there that India sensed that now the pressure is building on the West Indies because the scoring rate had gone down to a trickle. And then even if you have wickets in hand, you've got to take some chances. If the chances come out, then fine. If the chances don't come out, you've gone, and I think that's what's happened.
Well, looking at the way the West Indies pretty much, choked, I could possibly use that word. They did choke. It wasn't the Proteas this time, it was the Windies. 136 for 1 to 215 all out. The way Team India pulled things back, at a time it was looking like West Indies could win this and win it easily. The way India pulled it back, the way Dhoni stayed calm, that was impressive.
It was, because I think at that particular stage when they were batting well, the partnership was going well. I think that's where Dhoni realized that what he needed was to make sure that there were no easy runs. I think the Indian fielding lifted itself up at that stage. The ground fielding was outstanding today. The Indians were absolutely fantastic in the field. And I think when you have that kind of a support, the bowlers also lift their game. Amit Mishra bowled splendidly. Amit Mishra was taken for a few runs in the Kochi game. But the way he came and he bowled today, again a sign of somebody who's prepared to take a beating and come back. So I think all in all, it was the kind of performance that you would expect from the World Cup champions. And that's what it was.
Since you brought up Amit Mishra, great figures again, 10 overs, 2 for 40. Would you say, Mr. Gavaskar, this particular win of India's is a perfect example of what can happen when the spinners click? Because in Kochi, we saw the spinners in between all of them take, 2 wickets? This time, they've taken 5.
Yes, I think spin has always been India's strength. And when it's your strength, then all you want is for them to do well. And when you have Jadeja chipping in with some wickets today, Raina bowled a couple of overs. Otherwise, Raina has chipped in with the odd wicket, breaks the partnership, and then Dhoni goes back to his regular spinners. So yes, I think if the spinners can do the bulk of the bowling and get the bulk of the wickets in India, on Indian pitches, Indian conditions, that makes it easier for the team.
Again, I'm glad that you've brought in the Indian conditions bit here, because one thing that Team India will probably have at the back of their minds with the World Cup coming up is that they play a group stage match against the West Indies in Perth. Now, when you go and play there against the same opposition, by and large, but in foreign conditions, what do you do with the spinners there? Do you still go in with maybe 3 spinners?
I think, you'll have to look at the kind of pitch that could be there. For all you know, it could be a pitch which is dry, so there will be turn in it. So I think it's too early to say from here. But ideally, the West Indians have not been very good players of the wrist spinner. Not so much spin, but wrist spin. And I think if you have a quality wrist spinner in your side, that'll make a huge difference.
Would you perhaps look at bringing someone like a Kuldeep Yadav in for the next match? Maybe drop a pacer for 3 spinners?
You don't, change too much, when you have a winning combination. If somebody's out of form, somebody's injured, yes, you might make a change. But at this stage, no. I think his chance really was in the first match of the series. Now that Amit Mishra has bowled well, I don't think you want to make too many changes.
Now, we've spoken about the Indian bowling, Mr. Gavaskar. A quick word on the Indian batting. They got off to a slow start, 37 for 1 after 10 overs, which incidentally our statistician has pointed out is the slowest start for India against the West Indies since 2001. Overall, how would you rate the batting today? 350s by 3 different batsmen.
Yes, I think both those batsmen, at least at the top of the order, Raina and Kohli, should have gone on to even bigger scores. And they got out when plenty of overs were still left. So yes, I think that's an area of concern. But then you've got to say at the same time that with Virat Kohli being completely out of form, for him to have got so much time out in the middle is a big plus. But I think it's at the top of the order that India really has to work because they haven't given the start that you were just talking about. And either one of them is scoring or the other one's not doing. So that is a bit iffy. And if India can get off to a big start, say maybe even an 80, 90, 100 plus start, it makes it easy for numbers 3, 4, 5. And once again, I've got to compliment the Indian team for not being rigid about the batting order, of having Kohli come down the order, because at that time the ball was new. Jerome Taylor was getting the ball to move away quite nicely. So you've always got to think in terms of your team. There's got to be no rigidity. There's got to be flexibility. I'm glad to see that flexibility.
Actually, that was going to be my next question, because you had mentioned yourself that Kohli perhaps should look at dropping down the order to number 4 or maybe even number 5. The team administration perhaps listened to you and they've pushed him down. Less pressure perhaps when he comes in there, and a perfect launch pad for him to strike form again. But going by this innings, 62 of 78, there were glimpses of the old Kohli. With those flicks of the pad and all of that. It looks like he's getting that touch back. Of course, one innings is too quick to say, but he's getting that touch back.
But he's got the confidence. He's got time out in the middle. All this while, he wasn't getting time out in the middle. Now he's got time in the middle. The ball has met the middle of the bat for quite a while. So, yes, I think he'll be feeling good about the fact that he is now scoring runs. He's got another half century. Scoring a half century in limited overs cricket is not easy. He's got a half century. He's got 19 ODI hundreds. So, it is just a beginning, but at least he has taken that step forward, and I think that is good news for Indian cricket.
Overall, Mr. Gavaskar, how would you rate this particular bunch of cricketers? Because effectively looking again at the World Cup, which is the larger picture here, this will pretty much be the core of your playing 11. There will perhaps be a Rohit Sharma in there, there will perhaps be an R. Ashwin who's missing, but overall this by and large this will be the core of your playing 11. Are you impressed with this particular bunch?
What has been most impressive has been their athleticism. This team is very good. Now they save a lot of runs, and on the big grounds in Australia, maybe not such big grounds in New Zealand, but big grounds in Australia, saving those runs is going to be important. Taking the extra run while batting is going to be important. We see that when Kohli and Raina are together. We see that when Dhoni is at the crease. We see that when Jadeja is at the crease. So they convert ones into twos and twos into threes. And on the ground when they're fielding, they save those runs. Now that is going to be such an important aspect on big grounds in Australia. So I am quite optimistic about this Indian team. I think they just need a little bit of luck at the start of the tournament, and if that luck is with them, who knows?
One final very quick question. How exciting is this series now? Because things stand at 1-1. We all know what might or might not happen in the third ODI, which is going to be played in Vizag. Whether it will happen or not, no one knows. How exciting are things now with 3 matches to go?
Very exciting, because West Indies actually won the first game. If they hadn't won, if India had won the first game, then, and if India were to go on winning, it would look very one-sided. Now that it's sort of 1-1, and now that even the West Indies have shown that they can bat and score 300 runs in the first game, I think this is going to be a very, very exciting series.
Well, that's good news for all the cricket fans, not just the Indian, but even West Indian cricket fans. Good news, because as Mr. Gavaskar pointed out, things very, very, very exciting right now, because there is a huge question mark on the third ODI. We don't know whether it's going to be played or not because of that cyclone, but 3 more matches to go on paper and everything level at 1-1. Mr. Gavaskar, thanks so much for joining us.
Pleasure.
Great to have you here in the studio.